I'm Rick Emerson, and welcome back to Outlook Portland on Northwest 32 TV. Our guest is filmmaker Aaron Kirk Douglas. So, tell me how the film Monster Camp came to be.
Well, the director who I had worked with on Freedom State, Cullen Hoback, he came to me one day while we were still working on that film, and he said, my ex-girlfriend's brother is involved with a group that runs around in the forest and plays with foam-covered PVC pipe, and they hit each other over the head with it. And he said, I think that might make for a very interesting documentary.
It also makes for the weirdest film pitch I've ever heard in my life, which is not to say that it wasn't successful. It clearly was. Did you have to go see, and this is live action role-playing, where it is, for the most part, grown men and women,
right,
who are engaged in this sort of live action version of a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, which, did you have to go see it firsthand to really sort of grasp what he was talking about?
Well, I did. We went up to the Boy Scout camp somewhere in Washington, up by Mount Rainier, and we spent about 4 hours videotaping them. Some of that footage is used in the beginning part of the film. We weren't sure right away that it was going to be something we'd want to do, but after about an hour or so, we knew that the brain-sucking moth was in that scene, and at that point we realized that it was worth something.
I'm just sort of picturing you off stage like Cecil B. DeMille with it, with a cigar going, the brain-sucking moth, that's got to stay in. Everything else can go. That makes the whole picture. My friend Kelsey overheard me talking about this movie, and I was saying, oh, and it's this live-action role-playing gathering thing that happens in Washington. And she said, oh, I went to something just like that. I think it's by Tacoma. And I don't know if that's the same place or not, but it does indicate that this kind of thing has perhaps a larger audience than one might anticipate. So what has the reaction been to the film from people that are either totally outside of that sort of role-playing fantasy world, or people who are somewhat on the periphery of it? Have they responded?
It's done pretty well, actually. It won the audience award at Cinequest, which is one of the top 10 festivals in the U.S., which was where we had its first screening. And then it went on to screen at about 30 other film festivals around the world, and it had an 8-city theatrical release, and now is out on Netflix, and it was at Hollywood Video. I still follow it on Twitter. You can see what people are talking about by entering in search terms. So every day almost, I get these emails that show me that people are still talking about it.
My wife and I watched it, and I'd heard such great things about it, and I'd had it recommended to me by listeners of my radio show, and they'd raved about it. And we put it in the DVD player, and so they're introducing all the sort of folks that are profiled in this documentary, and they're sitting there in their wizard hat with their sort of like pewter dragon claw thing, clutching a crystal ball. And at one point, there's a father and son duo,
right, and
I forget whether the screen identifies it or whether they just say, and we're from Portland, Oregon. And it was that mixture of pride and sort of of course they're from Portland.
Right.
And they were just unbelievably nerdy and great and wonderful. And it was just all the shades of the human experience. And as a producer, is it difficult to find stories that haven't been told and retold and retold?
It is, and I think that's why now you're seeing a lot of movies about different subcultures. There's kind of been a trend along those lines. There are a lot of different groups out there like this that people have never even heard of, that are just very fascinating.
In a city like Portland, where it is so saturated with film, both from the perspective of film lovers and also from people who make movies, that creates a lot of community, and you talked about the resources, but does it create a little bit of a competition as well, competition for those resources?
Not so much. I think there's a lot of resources out there. I think the hard part for most filmmakers is they have a film they want to make, but there's a difference between making a film that's going to be commercial and doing one that you want to make because you love the subject matter or you feel like it needs to be out there. And sometimes there's a happy medium between a film that is commercial yet can still carry the message that you want it to have. And I think then there are other people who make movies that aren't very good at all. So
I like the bluntness with which you make that statement. Well done, sir. When we come back, we'll talk about Aaron Kirk Douglas and his new film, which is Veer, an examination of bicycle culture in Portland, Oregon. You're watching Outlook Portland right here on Northwest 32 TV.